All right, this week we had a landmark religious freedom case. A federal appeals court ruled that a Catholic school has the right to hire only individuals who live by its religious principles. There was a former substitute teacher who had sued the Diocese of Charlotte after the Charlotte Catholic School declined to call him as a backup for substitute teaching once he posted on social media about his marriage to another man. And after a lower court allowed the lawsuit to proceed, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals reaffirmed the diocese's freedom to choose teachers who will uphold and help pass on the faith to the next generation. And joining me now to discuss this great decision is Nick Reaves. He's a counsel at the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, which represented the Diocese of Charlotte in this case. Nick, welcome to Washington Watch.
Jody, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I tell you, this is a great reason to have you. Congratulations. What a tremendous victory. You've got to be extremely gratified, and the diocese as well, by this decision.
Absolutely. This is a great win for religious liberty, for the diocese. Their role is not just to provide an academic education to their students, but really to form them in the faith. And if they're not able to hire and retain teachers who will live out and pass on that faith to their students, then they're not able to really live out their religious mission. And I think this really goes back to a core principle the Supreme Court has recognized a few times, that churches have to be able to determine who is going to preach the faith and who's going to be able to pass the faith on to the next generation.
That is tremendous. Yeah, we cannot take away the First Amendment. And I just say thank you for standing in the gap on this. It seems to me that essentially the court said the First Amendment requires civil courts to stay out of employment disputes involving ministers. So break that down for us. What does that mean when they say, in essence, stay out of this employment dispute involving ministers? What does that mean?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Jody. They even use the word stay out in the opinion. I think what this means is it kind of boils down to the old adage that personnel is policy. So if a court or the government can come in and say, you have to hire this person, or you can't fire this person to be a minister in your church, or to teach religion to your students, or to model that faith in the classroom, the government is stepping in and imposing its views about what is or isn't the correct doctrine, the correct religion. And that really entangles or kind of enmeshes the government in a religious question. And the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment says the government should not interfere in those choices. I think you have to think about what the alternative is. The alternative would be that courts could tell schools, they could tell churches who they have to hire and who they can fire. And that's just not how our country works.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it would seem to me, I'm just putting myself in the role of a parent. If I'm a parent here, is it fair to say that a parent who is sacrificing their hard-earned money to send their child or children to a Charlotte Catholic school in this case, that parent, those parents are considering all of these teachers are in essence ministers who are going to model and promote Catholic faith and morals, not just education, but this is an extension of the doctrines of the church.
That's absolutely right. And that's what the court recognized here. I think one of the lines from the opinion was something like, even if you're teaching Romeo and Juliet, you're still modeling and you're still doing it consistent with Catholic Church teachings. You don't have to be just teaching, religious doctrine to be a minister. Your role as a teacher at an elementary school, at a high school, is to lead your students in the faith. And in this opinion, they pointed to multiple things that the teachers here did, from starting class with prayer, taking their students to mass, and even integrating the faith into their classroom.
All right, so let's answer the question here. We're describing this as a huge religious victory, and it is religious liberty victory. But why? What kind of precedent is this setting for Christian schools and maybe other similar type organizations going forward?
So this is an issue the Supreme Court has weighed in on multiple times, and they've affirmed this doctrine. They've expanded it and applied it to Catholic school teachers before. But I think this is probably the broadest and the strongest formulation of that doctrine that we've seen coming out of any court. Basically, what the court here said is we're presumptively all Catholic school teachers, all religious school teachers are going to qualify as ministers because these schools consider it vital, as you were just saying, Jody, they consider it vital that all their teachers pass on the faith, model the faith, and that parents expect that. Parents wouldn't be sending their kids to these schools if they didn't think the school would be not just giving a good education, but actually teaching the Catholic faith.
So is that the element that was added in this case, this outcome that was not previously there, that the teachers fall into the category of ministers? Is that the issue here that magnifies the importance of this case decision?
I think that's absolutely right. I think before this decision, it was clear that people who were maybe directly teaching theology or who had a role in teaching the actual religion class at a school were covered. But here the court is saying, I think correctly, and recognizing that this is how it works on the ground in these schools every day, all teachers at Catholic schools, at other Christian schools, at Jewish schools have that important responsibility. It's not just the religion teacher, it's anyone who's interacting with those students, modeling the faith, mentoring the students. You know, they play a vital role in the community, and forcing these schools to hire or retain someone who is not modeling that faith would undermine the ability of these schools to help those parents pass on that faith.
We don't have time to go into it further, but do you expect an appeal on this, or is this the final decision?
We think this is going to be the final word, but we'll have to wait and see.
That's awesome. Thank you, Nick Reaves from the Becket Fund for Religious Liberties. Man, fantastic job. Hats off to you. Great work. Thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.
Thank you.